Have you ever gone to bed thinking everything was fine, only to wake up to news that someone you know didn't make it through the night? It's a heartbreaking reality for many families across America. But what if we told you that some of these silent tragedies could have been prevented just by avoiding a few simple bedtime mistakes? In this video, we're going to share 4 powerful, real-life stories of older adults, just like you, whose ordinary nighttime habits led to devastating consequences. These are not meant to scare you, but to wake you up to the quiet dangers that often go unnoticed after age 70. Each story carries a lesson that could save your life, or the life of someone you love. Watch until the end to learn the small changes you can make tonight to sleep safer, live longer, and protect your golden years with wisdom and dignity. Before we begin, I would appreciate it. If you like this video, you can help me continue to spread the old age lesson. If you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. If you like this video, please comment number 1. If you don't like it, comment number 0 to let me know, so I can make a better video for you. Now let's get started. 1. Eating too late at night. Mr. Robert Thompson, a 74-year-old widower, lived a quiet life in a modest bungalow in Sarasota, Florida. After his wife, Margaret, passed away 5 years earlier, Robert found solace in routine. A retired high school math teacher, he filled his days with gardening, reading the morning paper, and chatting with neighbors. But it was his evenings that defined his rhythm, a ritual centered around sports and a hearty late-night dinner. Every night around 9 p.m., Robert would settle into his recliner, tune his television to ESPN, and savor a plate piled high with his favorite foods. Slow-cooked barbecue ribs slathered in thick, tangy sauce, creamy coleslaw, baked beans, and a tall glass of ice-cold cola to wash it all down. The meal was his comfort, a way to unwind and fill the silence left by Margaret's absence. Robert wasn't oblivious to health advice. He walked daily, kept his weight in check, and visited his doctor for annual checkups. His blood pressure was slightly elevated, but nothing alarming, and he took a low-dose medication for it. He'd occasionally feel a burning sensation in his chest after meals, which he dismissed as indigestion, popping an over-the-counter antacid when it bothered him. To Robert, his late dinners were harmless, a small indulgence in an otherwise disciplined life. What he didn't realize was that this habit, seemingly benign, was slowly setting the stage for a tragedy. On a warm April evening in 2025, Robert followed his usual routine. He'd spent the day tending to his tomato plants and watching a baseball game between the Tampa Bay Rays and the Boston Red Sox. Around 9:15 p.m., he heated a generous portion of leftover barbecue ribs, paired them with a side of macaroni and cheese, and cracked open a can of soda. The meal was delicious, and Robert savored every bite, finishing with a satisfied sigh as he leaned back in his recliner. By 10:30 p.m., he felt drowsy, turned off the TV, and headed to bed. He fell asleep quickly, unaware that this would be his final night. At some point in the early hours, Robert began to struggle. His breathing became labored, and a gurgling sound filled the room. Tragically, he never woke up. The next morning, his neighbor, Mrs. Clara Evans, grew concerned when Robert didn't appear in his garden as usual. She knocked on his door, and when there was no answer, she called 911. Paramedics found Robert lifeless in his bed, his face pale and serene. The scene was heartbreakingly quiet. No signs of struggle, just a man who appeared to have slipped away in his sleep. The coroner's report, delivered a week later, revealed a shocking truth. Robert had died from asphyxiation caused by severe acid reflux. During the night, stomach acid and partially digested food had surged up his esophagus and into his airway, a condition known as aspiration. This blocked his breathing, leading to a silent, fatal suffocation. The report noted that Robert's stomach was still full at the time of death, a direct consequence of his heavy late-night meal. His long-standing habit of eating close to bedtime, combined with his age and undiagnosed gastroesophageal reflux disease, GERD, had created a perfect storm. The news stunned Robert's neighbors and family. His daughter, Emily, who lived in Atlanta, was devastated. "He seemed so healthy," she said through tears. "He was active, he laughed, he loved life. I had no idea eating late could do this." Robert's neighbors echoed her disbelief. Mrs. Evans recalled how Robert would often invite her over to share his barbecue, always eating late while watching sports. He never complained about anything serious, she said. Maybe a little heartburn, but who doesn't get that? The tragedy left the community grappling with a sobering realization. A habit as common as eating late could turn deadly, especially for seniors. The science behind the danger, Robert's story underscores a critical health risk that often goes unnoticed. The dangers of eating late at night, particularly for older adults. When you eat close to bedtime, your stomach is still actively digesting food as you lie down. Gravity, which normally helps keep stomach contents in place, no longer assists when you're horizontal. This increases the likelihood of acid reflux, where stomach acid flows back into the esophagus. For some, like Robert, this can escalate to aspiration, where stomach contents enter the airway, potentially blocking breathing. Seniors are especially vulnerable. As we age, the lower esophageal sphincter, the muscle that prevents stomach acid from rising, weakens. Digestive processes slow, and conditions like GERD become more common, affecting up to 20% of adults over 65, according to medical studies. Heavy meals, spicy or fatty foods, like Robert's beloved barbecue, and carbonated drinks like his soda, exacerbate reflux by increasing stomach pressure and acid production. Lying down soon after eating compounds the problem, allowing acid to pool in the esophagus. Robert's case was particularly severe because his GERD was undiagnosed. Chronic acid reflux can silently damage the esophagus, increasing the risk of complications like aspiration or even esophageal cancer. Symptoms like heartburn, regurgitation, or a sour taste in the mouth are often dismissed as normal aging, as Robert did. His occasional antacid use masked the problem without addressing the root cause, his late-night eating habit. Lessons and prevention. Robert's death was a preventable tragedy, one that carries a powerful lesson. A single late dinner could become your last if you don't change your habits. For seniors, the risks of eating late are not just about discomfort, they can be life-threatening. Here are detailed steps to protect yourself. Time your meals wisely. Aim to finish your last meal or snack at least 3 to 4 hours before bedtime. For example, if you sleep at 10 p.m., eat no later than 6 o'clock or 7 p.m. This gives your stomach time to empty, reducing reflux risk. Choose lighter foods. Avoid heavy, fatty, or spicy meals in the evening. Opt for easily digestible foods like lean proteins, vegetables, and whole grains. Robert's barbecue ribs, high in fat and paired with sugary sauce, were a poor choice for a late meal. Limit trigger foods and drinks. Carbonated beverages, citrus, tomatoes, chocolate, and alcohol can worsen reflux. Robert's soda habit likely contributed to his acid production. Stay upright after eating. Don't lie down immediately after a meal. Sit or walk lightly to aid digestion. Robert's habit of reclining in his chair post-dinner increased his risk. Elevate your head during sleep. Use a wedge pillow or raise the head of your bed by 6 to 8 inches to prevent acid from flowing upward. This simple change could have saved Robert. Monitor symptoms. Persistent heartburn, difficulty swallowing, or a chronic cough could signal GERD. Consult a doctor for evaluation, which may include tests like an endoscopy to assess esophageal health. Manage underlying conditions. Obesity, hiatal hernias, and certain medications can worsen reflux. Discuss these with your healthcare provider. Robert's story is a wake-up call. His love for late-night barbecue wasn't inherently wrong, but his lack of awareness about its risks proved fatal. By making small, intentional changes to meal timing and food choices, you can protect yourself from a similar fate. Don't let a preventable habit steal your tomorrows. Act now to ensure your evenings are safe and your nights restful. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. 2. Taking sleeping pills without guidance. Betty Thompson, a 78-year-old widow from a small town in Texas, had always been known for her resilience. After her husband of 52 years passed away, her nights grew long and restless. The quiet of her once lively home felt oppressive, and sleep became elusive. Grief weighed heavily, but Betty, proud and independent, didn't want to burden her children with her struggles. She believed she could handle it on her own, as she always had. One afternoon, while picking up groceries at the local pharmacy, Betty noticed a display of over-the-counter, OTC, sleep aids. The packaging promised safe, gentle relief for sleepless nights, and the idea of a simple solution felt like a lifeline. Without consulting her doctor or even her pharmacist, she purchased a bottle of diphenhydramine-based sleep aids, a common antihistamine marketed for insomnia relief. That night, she took one pill as directed and drifted off for a few hours. For the first time in weeks, she felt a glimmer of hope. But the relief was fleeting. Within a week, one pill no longer seemed to work. Betty, unaware of the risks of tolerance, began taking 2 pills a night, reasoning that a little more couldn't hurt. She didn't know that diphenhydramine, while available without a prescription, can be dangerous in higher doses, especially for older adults. She also didn't consider how her other health conditions, undiagnosed and untreated high blood pressure for instance, might interact with the medication. To Betty, it was just a sleeping pill, not something that required a doctor's oversight. Months passed and Betty's reliance on the pills grew. She never mentioned her sleeplessness or her self-medication to her children during their weekly phone calls, nor did she bring it up during her infrequent doctor visits. Her children, busy with their own lives, didn't notice the subtle changes in her voice or the increasing fatigue she masked with forced cheerfulness. Betty's isolation, both emotional and physical, deepened her silent suffering. One chilly morning in early spring, Betty's daughter Sarah stopped by for a surprise visit. She found her mother lying in bed, unresponsive, her breathing shallow and irregular. Panic set in as Sarah called 911. Paramedics rushed Betty to the hospital where doctors worked to stabilize her. After a battery of tests, they delivered a devastating diagnosis. Betty had suffered respiratory depression, a life-threatening condition caused by an overdose of her over-the-counter sleep medication. The diphenhydramine had suppressed her central nervous system, slowing her breathing to a dangerous degree. Her untreated high blood pressure exacerbated the situation, putting additional strain on her heart and lungs. Despite the medical team's efforts, Betty's condition deteriorated. She passed away quietly in the hospital 2 days later, surrounded by her grieving family. The tragedy left her children grappling with guilt and confusion. How could something as seemingly harmless as a sleeping pill lead to such a catastrophic outcome? Why hadn't their mother told them she was struggling? The doctors explained that older adults like Betty are particularly vulnerable to the side effects of medications like diphenhydramine. Aging bodies metabolize drugs more slowly, and conditions like high blood pressure or heart disease, whether diagnosed or not, can amplify risks. Diphenhydramine can cause confusion, dizziness, and even delirium in older adults. And in high doses, it can depress breathing and heart function. Betty's gradual increase in dosage, combined with her underlying health issues, created a perfect storm. Betty's story is a heartbreaking reminder of the dangers of self-medicating, especially for older adults. Her grief and insomnia were real, but her decision to suffer in silence and rely on over-the-counter remedies without guidance led to a preventable tragedy. Had she spoken to her doctor, she might have been prescribed safer alternatives, such as cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, CBTI, or a carefully monitored medication tailored to her health needs. Even a conversation with her pharmacist could have flagged the risks of diphenhydramine for someone her age. Lessons learned. Betty's passing underscores several critical lessons for older adults and their families. Never suffer in silence. Insomnia, grief, or any health concern deserves attention. Older adults should feel empowered to share their struggles with family, friends, or healthcare providers. Asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. Avoid self-medicating. Over-the-counter medications may seem safe, but they can carry significant risks, especially for older adults. Even common drugs like diphenhydramine can interact with other medications or health conditions in dangerous ways. Consult a doctor or pharmacist. Before starting any new medication, including over-the-counter sleep aids, consult a healthcare professional. They can assess your overall health, review potential interactions, and recommend safer options. Be aware of age-related risks. Aging changes how the body processes medications. Older adults are more susceptible to side effects, and conditions like high blood pressure or heart disease can complicate treatment. Stay connected. Family and friends play a vital role in noticing changes in behavior or health. Regular check-ins can help identify issues like insomnia or emotional distress before they escalate. Betty's story is a call to action. No one should face sleepless nights or grief alone, and no one should assume that a pill from the pharmacy shelf is a harmless fix. By speaking up and seeking guidance, older adults can protect their health and avoid the silent dangers of self-medication. Betty's memory lives on as a reminder to prioritize open communication and professional care in the face of life's challenges. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 3 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. 3. Skipping blood pressure checks before bed. Story: Mr. Frank and the Tragedy of the Forgotten Monitor. Franklin Frank Thompson, a 76-year-old retired school teacher from a quiet suburb in Columbus, Ohio, was known for his warm smile and love for gardening. Diagnosed with hypertension in his late 60s, Frank was prescribed medication and advised by his doctor to monitor his blood pressure twice daily, once in the morning and once before bed. His doctor emphasized that consistent monitoring was critical, as blood pressure can fluctuate, and nighttime readings could reveal patterns that daytime checks might miss. Frank was diligent at first, dutifully recording his readings in a small notebook. But as the years passed and he felt fine, his commitment waned. The nightly checks, in particular, became a chore he often skipped. "I'm tired and I feel okay," he'd tell his wife Ellen as he climbed into bed. The blood pressure monitor, once a staple on his nightstand, began collecting dust, relegated to a corner of the bedroom. On a crisp autumn day in 2024, Frank decided to take a longer than usual walk through his neighborhood park, enjoying the vibrant foliage and crisp air. He covered nearly 2 miles, more than his typical stroll, and returned home feeling invigorated but slightly lightheaded. He brushed it off as fatigue from the exercise, had a light dinner, and watched a classic movie with Ellen. When bedtime came, Frank skipped his blood pressure check again, reasoning that he'd check it in the morning. He kissed Ellen goodnight and fell asleep. The next morning, Ellen woke to an eerie silence. Frank, usually an early riser, was still in bed, unresponsive. Panicked, she called 911. But despite the paramedics' swift response, Frank could not be revived. At the hospital, doctors delivered the devastating news. Frank had suffered a massive stroke during the night, likely triggered by uncontrolled high blood pressure. The stroke had gone unnoticed until it was too late. As Ellen and their 2 adult children grieved, they were haunted by the sight of Frank's blood pressure monitor, still sitting untouched just a few feet from his bed, its screen blank and its cuff neatly folded. A simple check the previous night might have revealed a dangerous spike in his blood pressure, potentially prompting urgent action that could have saved his life. The science behind nightly monitoring, hypertension, or high blood pressure is often called the silent killer because it can cause significant damage to the heart, blood vessels, and brain without obvious symptoms. According to the American Heart Association, nearly half of U.S. adults have high blood pressure, and many are unaware of it or fail to manage it effectively. Nighttime blood pressure monitoring is particularly important because blood pressure naturally dips at night in healthy individuals, a phenomenon called nocturnal dipping. In some people with hypertension, however, this dip doesn't occur, or their blood pressure may even rise at night, a condition known as nocturnal hypertension. This increases the risk of cardiovascular events like strokes or heart attacks, especially during sleep when symptoms are less likely to be noticed. For older adults like Frank, who may have additional risk factors such as age-related vascular changes or a history of physical inactivity, regular monitoring is crucial. A single elevated reading before bed could signal the need for medication adjustments, lifestyle changes, or immediate medical attention. Home blood pressure monitors are affordable, easy to use, and widely available, making this a practical step for most people. Yet studies show that adherence to monitoring routines often declines over time, especially when patients feel well, as Frank did. What went wrong in Frank's case? Frank's story highlights several common pitfalls in managing hypertension. Complacency due to feeling fine. Many people with hypertension experience no obvious symptoms, leading them to underestimate the severity of their condition. Frank's lightheadedness after his walk was a warning sign he dismissed. Skipping nightly checks nighttime readings can detect spikes or patterns that daytime measurements miss. Frank's habit of skipping these checks meant he had no data to share with his doctor about his condition in the hours leading up to his stroke. Lack of routine. Over time, Frank's monitoring became sporadic, reducing its effectiveness. A consistent routine, such as checking at the same time each evening, could have made the habit stick. Underestimating lifestyle impacts Frank's longer walk, while healthy, may have temporarily elevated his blood pressure, especially if he was dehydrated or his medication wasn't optimized. Monitoring that evening could have caught this. Lessons learned. Why nightly checks matter. Frank's tragic outcome underscores the importance of a simple, yet potentially life-saving habit: checking your blood pressure before bed. Here's why it's worth the effort. Early detection saves lives. A single high reading could prompt a call to your doctor or a visit to the emergency room, preventing a stroke, heart attack, or other complications. For example, a reading consistently above 140 over 90 millimeters of mercury at night warrants medical attention. Tracks patterns over time. Regular monitoring provides valuable data for your healthcare provider to tailor your treatment, such as adjusting medications or recommending lifestyle changes. Empowers proactive health management. Taking control of your health through monitoring fosters a sense of responsibility and can motivate other healthy habits, like reducing salt intake or managing stress. Protects vulnerable hours. Strokes and heart attacks often occur in the early morning hours, when blood pressure naturally rises. Nighttime checks can identify risks before you sleep, when you're least likely to notice symptoms. How to make nightly monitoring a habit. To avoid Frank's fate, consider these practical steps. Keep it convenient. Place your blood pressure monitor in a visible, accessible spot, like your nightstand, to serve as a visual reminder. Set a routine, pair the check with another bedtime habit, such as brushing your teeth or reading, to make it automatic. Log your readings, use a notebook, smartphone app, or monitor with memory functions to track your readings. Share this data with your doctor regularly. Involve family. Ask a spouse or family member to remind you or check their blood pressure alongside you, creating a shared health goal. Educate yourself. Learn about your target blood pressure, typically below 120 over 80 millimeters of mercury for most adults, though this varies by age and health status, and the risks of skipping checks. Replace batteries or equipment. Ensure your monitor is functional. If it's old or unreliable, invest in a validated device recommended by your doctor. Frank's story is a heartbreaking reminder that small actions can have profound consequences. His family was left grappling not only with grief, but also with the what-ifs. What if he had checked his blood pressure that night? What if they had encouraged him to stick to his routine? For those with hypertension, or even those unsure of their blood pressure status, committing to nightly monitoring is a low-effort, high-impact step toward a longer, healthier life. It takes just a few minutes to strap on the cuff, press a button, and read the numbers. Minutes that could add years to your life or spare your loved ones the pain of an avoidable loss. If you or someone you know has been diagnosed with high blood pressure, let Frank's story be a wake-up call. Dust off that monitor, make the check a non-negotiable part of your evening, and take charge of your health. Your heart, your brain, and your family will thank you. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 4 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. 4. Not staying warm on cold nights. Story: Mrs. Margaret and the chilly spring night in California. Margaret Thompson, an 80-year-old widow living in a quaint suburban home in Northern California, had always been fiercely independent. Her cozy one-story house, adorned with family photos and knitted throws, was her sanctuary. One of her lifelong habits was sleeping with her bedroom window slightly ajar, even in cooler seasons. "I need fresh air to sleep soundly," she'd say with a stubborn smile, brushing off her son David's repeated warnings about the risks of cold exposure. To Margaret, the gentle breeze wafting through her window was a comfort, a connection to the outdoors she'd cherished since her childhood on a farm. She believed her body could handle it, insisting she never felt chilly. David, however, worried about her declining ability to regulate body temperature, a common issue in older adults. But Margaret dismissed his concerns as overprotective. On a seemingly mild spring evening in March 2025, Margaret followed her usual routine. She sipped chamomile tea, read a few pages of a historical novel, and settled into bed with a light cotton blanket. The weather forecast had predicted a cool but not freezing night, with temperatures dipping into the low 40s Fahrenheit. Confident in her habit, Margaret left her window cracked open as always, wearing only her thin flannel pajamas. She didn't bother with a sweater, extra blanket, or socks, believing her body would signal if she needed more warmth. Unbeknownst to her, a sudden cold front swept through the region overnight, causing temperatures to plummet to the mid-30s, with a biting wind that funneled through her open window. As the night wore on, the chilly air enveloped her bedroom. Margaret's aging body, less efficient at thermoregulation due to reduced muscle mass and slower metabolism, began to lose heat rapidly. Older adults like Margaret often have a diminished ability to sense cold or shiver effectively, which normally helps generate body heat. By the early hours of the morning, her core body temperature had dropped dangerously low, a condition known as hypothermia. Her hands and feet grew icy, her heart rate slowed, and her breathing became shallow. Tragically, she slipped into unconsciousness, unable to wake or call for help. At 7 a.m., David, who lived nearby and checked on his mother daily, arrived at her home. He immediately sensed something was wrong when he found the house unusually cold. Rushing to her bedroom, he was horrified to see Margaret lying motionless, her lips pale and her skin clammy. The open window and thin blanket told the story. Panicked, he wrapped her in blankets and called 911. Emergency services arrived within minutes, and paramedics quickly recognized the signs of severe hypothermia. They administered warm intravenous fluids and transported her to the hospital, where doctors worked urgently to stabilize her. In the intensive care unit, tests revealed that Margaret's hypothermia had triggered serious complications. The extreme cold had strained her heart, causing an irregular heartbeat, arrhythmia, and exacerbating her pre-existing mild heart condition. Her kidneys, stressed by the body's attempt to conserve heat, also showed signs of strain. 4 weeks, Margaret remained in the hospital, undergoing treatment to restore her heart rhythm, manage fluid imbalances, and rebuild her strength. Physical therapy was needed to help her regain mobility, as the ordeal had left her frail. Throughout her recovery, David and his family rarely left her side, grappling with guilt and fear that they might have lost her. Reflecting on the incident, David shared an emotional account with Margaret's care team. "Mom always said she didn't feel cold, so we thought she was fine. But just because she didn't feel it didn't mean her body wasn't suffering. Her stubbornness about that window almost cost her life. We almost lost her over something so preventable." He now advocates for greater awareness about hypothermia risks in older adults, emphasizing that even mild cold can be dangerous for seniors, especially those living alone. Margaret's story underscores a critical lesson. Older adults are particularly vulnerable to cold temperatures, even in regions like California, where winters are relatively mild. Factors such as reduced body fat, slower circulation, and medications that affect temperature regulation, like beta blockers or sedatives, can heighten this risk. Simple precautions, such as wearing warm layers, using heavier blankets, keeping windows closed on cold nights, and maintaining a warm indoor temperature, at least 68 degrees Fahrenheit, can prevent such emergencies. Margaret, now back home and recovering, has reluctantly agreed to keep her window closed on cooler nights and uses a small space heater in her bedroom. She's also started wearing socks and a sweater to bed, a compromise she jokingly calls David's new house rules. This near tragedy serves as a poignant reminder that staying warm isn't just about comfort. It's a matter of safety, especially for seniors. Families and caregivers should regularly check on elderly loved ones during colder months, ensuring their homes are adequately heated and that they're dressed appropriately for the weather, even indoors. For Margaret and David, the chilly spring night was a wake-up call, one they hope others will heed before it's too late. We've just walked through 4 real-life stories that may feel all too familiar. These weren't stories from a movie or fiction. They were real people, real families, and real losses that could have been avoided with just a few small changes at bedtime. And that's what makes this message so important. So now we ask you, what did you learn today that hit home? Was it the story of Robert, who didn't survive a night after a late meal? Or Betty, who quietly struggled with sleep and relied on over-the-counter pills until it was too late? Maybe it was Frank, who skipped a simple blood pressure check. Or Margaret, who underestimated the cold and nearly paid with her life. These moments remind us that age doesn't just bring wisdom, it brings responsibility. Responsibility to care for ourselves in new ways, to be more mindful of habits that didn't matter at 40, but could mean life or death after 70. We'd love for you to take a moment and comment below. What's one thing you're taking away from this video that you're going to apply in your life starting tonight? Whether it's eating dinner earlier, asking your doctor about your sleep medication, checking your blood pressure, or simply putting on an extra blanket, every small step matters. And if you're watching this not just for yourself, but for someone you love, a parent, a grandparent, or a dear friend, share this video with them. It could be the most loving thing you do for them today. If this video opened your eyes, made you pause, or gave you something to think about, please leave a comment below to let us know. And don't forget to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're here to bring you real, honest, life-saving content for seniors, because you deserve to age with dignity, knowledge, and power. Until next time, take care.